Every developer should know how to write a to-do application, and in this tutorial we will look at how we can write a to-do app with Firebase, so you can create to-dos, you can read to-dos, update and also delete to-dos from Firebase. In the last two tutorials we already created the UI of this to-do app, and now we want to go deeper into how we can connect everything with Firebase and that everything syncs automatically with Firebase. We will start here with setting up Firebase. If you already know how to set up Firebase, then please feel free to skip this section. Otherwise, we will now go into it. So first of all, you go to console.firebasegoogle.com and create a new project. And here you can give it a name. So for example, you call it to-do app or something and click on continue. Then you can enable it or disable it and click on create. After it is finished, you click on continue and then you go here to the Cloud Firestore where we want to store our whole data. And this is basically a database, and therefore you simply click here on create database and you start in production or in test mode. We want to have here test mode, and then we click on next. Then you can choose the server location, and I will choose here Europe, and then I click on enable. And after some time everything is configured, and then you can go here to the settings, to the project settings, and now we want to create here an app for Android. And if you want to learn more about Firebase setup, you can also set it up for iOS and web. And therefore you find in the description a link about the complete Firebase setup, and there we learn everything about setting up web, Android and iOS. We will set here up only Android right now. And the first thing what we need here is an Android package name, and therefore you simply go to your project, and here inside you go into the Android folder, into app, source, main and Android manifest, and here you see this package name which you need to copy then, and back in the browser you simply paste it here inside. Here you can give it some name, so choose for example Android and click on register app. Then you need to download this Google service in JSON, and then we need to paste this file inside of our Android and app folder, so this folder here, and then it should look like this. After it you can go here back and click on next, and now we need to do some configuration, so you can copy first of all this line which we need to put into the build Gradle file, and therefore make sure that you close here this app folder because we have here another build Gradle file, and we take this build Gradle file inside of the Android folder. And here at the dependency level you can put this dependency class path inside, and then you can go here back and scroll down, and we also need to put here this inside, so copy also this line, and this time we go here into the app folder and into the other build Gradle file, and here at the end of the file we want to put this line inside. In the same file we also add here this multi-dux enabled, and we also want to add here below inside of the dependency this implementation, and simply add here also this one. And that's all what we need for the Android setup. Lastly, you need to go to your pubspec YAML file, and here inside we paste some dependencies inside. So first of all the Firebase core dependency and also the Cloud Firestore. This dependency is mandatory if you want to use Firebase, and this one is only if we want to access the Firestore, and this is the database of Firebase which we want to use in this example. And the last thing we want to do is to go to our main file, and here inside we want to paste two things inside. So first of all this binding, and this is the most important thing, to put here this initialized app inside so that we initialize our Firebase, and then make sure that you import it. We also put here an async and a future for this main. And that's everything what we need for the whole Firebase setup. And in the browser you can simply click on next and continue to the console, and then we are done with the configuration here also. Alright, now let's start with the integration of Firebase to actually create, read, update and delete to-dos. If you haven't watched the last two videos about creating this UI and you feel like you have some difficulty in this tutorial, then make sure that you probably watch first of all these two tutorials and then come back here, and then you learn everything about integrating Firebase. Alright, let's get started by creating first of all a new file, Firebase API, and here inside we create a new method, create to do, and basically in our UI we have here this dialog, and every time we can put here title and a description, and then if we press here on save, then this method should be called, and basically what we get then is an object of a to do with the title, description, so these both fields, and also some other fields. And here inside we want to call right now our Firebase instance. So what we do is we call here Firebase Firestore instance, and then we create a new collection, and a collection is where you simply store your data, and you can have multiple collections, and we want to have a collection with all of our to-dos. And inside of the collection you can create multiple documents, and the documents will store every time one specific to-do. And with this syntax we basically create here one document, so we create one new to-do, and this document here will already generate an ID for us, and this ID we want to put into our to-do, because here we have an ID field, and that's what we want to set here. So we take the document ID and put it inside of our to-do. And now we want to create this to-do on Firebase, therefore we call our document, and then you call here set, and within it you can put the to-do. However, this is not really working because Firebase doesn't understand our to-do object, therefore we need to transform it to some JSON, and therefore we need to go here to this to-do class and create a toJSON method. And this looks then like this, so we create a new toJSON method, and here inside of this map we put all the fields inside of our object. So we start, for example, with the title, so we simply put here a title as string inside, and then our object, which is also string, and we also do this for the other ones. And for the datetime you need to convert it actually to also a string representation, and therefore we use here some utils method. And therefore I go here to the utils class and I paste here two things inside, and this is basically needed to transfer a datetime to JSON, or that we have some JSON and we transfer it back to our datetime object. And that's all what we need for setting our data to Firebase. And we also want to implement here quickly another method which is called fromJSON, and later we can then transfer this data from Firebase, which is this map string representation, and we transfer it back to our to-do object. Alright, let's go back to the Firebase API, and you see this is now working, so we put it to a JSON representation which Firebase understands, and now he will simply store our to-do inside of the Firebase document. And the last thing what we want to do here within this method is to return our ID, therefore I call here document and then we return here this ID. Now we want to make this button working, and therefore we go to our provider where the whole logic of our application is inside. And here we have created in the last tutorials a method for add to do. This is when we add here some to do and we store it then here locally. We also have here a method for removing to dos, for updating to dos, and these methods are what we want to change right now. And this is pretty simple, so instead of calling here all this code and update our list locally, what we want to do here is to call this Firebase API, and here we call exactly this method create to do and put our to do object inside. And this will then store our to do locally within our file system and also on Firebase. And now let's try it also out. So we add here a new to do and then click on save. And then you can go to your console to Cloud Firestore, and here you should see that a new collection was created which is called to do, and this is because we have called our collection here to do, and within it we create a new document, and like you can see also in Firebase we have here a new document with some ID, and here is all the data inside which we have created. So we have here hello world and also my description and also the other data. However, if we now look in our app, there is nothing inside, and that's what we need to change. Therefore, we first of all go to our provider, and here we want to delete all the to-dos which are initially inside. So let's simply take all of them and remove them. Then you can hot restart your application, and you should see that we have no to-dos anymore here. And now that our app is empty and we don't have any to-dos, however, we have a to-do here still on Firebase, and that's what we want to load right now. Therefore, we go to our home page, and here inside we go down to our body property where we actually display here all the pages. And like you can remember, we have here a to-do list widget and a completed list widget, and this is a to-do list widget for this page, and we also have here this completed list widget. And these pages we want to wrap into a stream builder, so we put here stream builder around, and this gets then our to-dos from the server, and therefore we have here lists of to-dos which we get from the server, and then we call here the stream property, and here we call our Firebase API and the read to-dos which we want to create right now. So let's go again to our Firebase API, and here inside we create a new method which is called read to-dos, and this returns a stream of a list of to-dos. And now we simply call here, like before, the Firebase Firestore instance, and then we call here the collection to do. So make sure that it is exactly the same collection where we have written before to. After it, we want to get all the to-dos, and we want to order them by the created time when the to-do was created. And then you can call here snapshots, and this will return a stream of query snapshot. And this query snapshot we need to transform to our to-do object, and therefore I call here this transform method, and inside of it we call a utils transformer. So this is a method which I have created, and here inside we put our to-do from JSON, and like you remember, this time we use here from JSON because last time we have created something for Firebase, then you need to put it to JSON. However, if you read something from Firebase, then you need to use the from JSON method. And if you wonder what this transformer method is doing, you can have a look at this code. I don't want to go into detail about it, and you don't need to write here everything. You can get the whole source code of this project with the first link in the description, and with the second link you can get my Flutter course where I teach you how you can become a more advanced and much better Flutter developer. Alright, now we have created this method and we can go back to our home page. And here we basically get a snapshot, and the snapshot contains then a list of our to-dos which we get from Firebase. Alright, so we simply get here our to-dos by calling snapshot.data, and then we have our list of to-dos, and here we call then the provider, and this is exactly this provider here where we have all of our to-dos inside. And what we want to do is we want to store them right now here locally inside. And therefore we call the provider, and here we call a new method which we want to create, set to-dos, and here we will update all of our to-dos which we get from Firebase with this new version. So let's go to our provider, and here we want to actually create this method. So we create here this new method set to-dos, and here we get our new to-dos, and basically we want to put it here inside of this list. So what we do is we override the list which we have currently locally with the new to-dos, and after it we want to call the notify listeners, and this will then update our whole UI inside of our application. And that everything goes right, you need to wrap these two things inside of this widget bindings, and this will make sure that this update which we are doing here is not called during the build method, because the problem is that we are here in the home page and we are here within our build method where we call here this set to-dos, and therefore it is necessary that you put this binder around, so after our build method is completed, he will then update our app with the new to-dos. And after you hot restart your application, you should see that we have loaded this to-do from Firebase, and this has exactly this title and description inside which we have written before inside. However, if you click here on hot restart, you see for a short time a small arrow, and this is because he has initially no data, and that's what we want to change. Therefore you need to go to the home page, and here we want to wrap this successful case where we load some data around with some switch. So we actually have here a case if we are waiting for the data, then we want to show here a loading indicator, and if something goes wrong then we want to show simply an error text. Otherwise we have here this successful case and everything is loaded successfully from Firebase. And now if we hot restart our application, everything should work fine. The next thing is that we also want to update a to-do, so you have here this option to edit a to-do, and then you can change it, and it should also change directly on Firebase. Therefore we go to our Firebase API, and create a new method. So we create a method which is called update to do. And here we put our to-do inside, which should get updated. And the important thing is that every to-do has an ID. And if you remember, every document in Firebase has an ID. So we have your collection and the document has an identifier, which we need to call to access this document. And that's what we want to do right now. So let's go back to the Firebase API. And here inside we call again the Firebase instance. And then we call this collection to do. And inside of it, there are all the documents with the IDs, and we need an ID to identify this document. So we put here inside of this document the to-do ID, which we currently have for this document, and then we want to change this to-do document. After it, you call here document.update and put your updated document inside. And here in this case, we put it again to JSON because Firebase always needs JSON. To implement this update, we go again to our provider. And like you remember, we have here also this update method. And here we simply update the title and description. So if we change here the title and description, it will be always updated currently locally. And after it, we have always updated the UI. And what we do here, we simply replace this notify listener with our Firebase update to do and put here our updated to do inside. And Firebase will manage the remaining part. So he will store it locally and also on the server. So that's all what we need. So let's try it out. So I type here something, then I click on save, and you should see that it automatically changes here inside of our database. And you can also change the description, put here something inside, and it will immediately be reflected in our database. In our application, we have for every to-do 2 states, so it can be completed or it can be open like this. And this is also what we need to manage, and therefore we have in our provider this method toggle to-do status. And here we basically toggle our is done boolean flag, which we have here inside of our to-do. And again, after we have updated our to-do, we simply call here Firebase update to-do and put here our updated to-do inside. And then Firebase will care about the remaining part and will store it locally and on the server. So let's also try it out. So every time if we click here on the checkbox, you should see that this field here is toggling between false and true. And I click here and you see it's becoming true. And now it's here inside of our completed list. And if I click again on this one, then it's false and it is going again to the other list. And the great thing about Firebase, like you saw, is that everything is updated automatically. And this is because we use here Stream Builder. So we have some connection to Firebase, and Firebase will always push the new state here inside, and we will then read the new to-dos with this method. However, if you don't want to have a real-time connection, so maybe you want that the user gets updated if he refreshes this page, then you can also use here the future builder, and then he will not update everything automatically. However, we will continue here with the stream builder. The last thing what we need to do is to delete a to-do, and therefore we go again to our provider, and here we have this message remove to-do. And instead of removing our to-dos from the local list, we simply call here again Firebase instead, and then we want to create here a new method delete to-do and put our to-do here inside. So let's go again to our Firebase API. Here we create then this delete to-do method, and we get here every time the to-do which should be deleted, and this to-do has then this ID which we use to identify the document which should be deleted on Firebase. Therefore we call here inside our Firebase instance again, and here we access our collection to do. And again we need to access here our document ID, therefore we call here document and put here our to do ID inside so that we reference the document which we want to delete. And after it we simply call document and delete, and this will then delete our document from Firebase and also from our local storage. Alright, let's try this delete right now out. So I go here and click delete, and you should see that this document is deleted from our Firebase storage and also locally. And we can also delete this other one and click here on delete, and then also this document is deleted and we have no to-dos in our app anymore. Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel here to get the latest news about Flutter, and see you soon. Bye!